you ready? I said, are you ready? To the thousands watching here and the millions around the world and the one fat ass guy that's sitting on the sofa. Let's get ready to suck it. Welcome to another edition of the Thursday Night Throwdown with the sideline junkies. It's me, the big guy KG, channeling my inner Triple H. And sitting beside me is quite possibly the biggest Brownstone fan there is, because if you love him, say it. If you trust him, do it. The Midnight Rider.
Do it, yeah.
First and foremost, man, how you feeling tonight?
I'm good, man. I teed up this Browns versus Eagles so I can see my man DTR. And I also want to see if they're gonna play the kid they drafted, Carter, if he's gonna play more than 2 snaps this week. But I think they're gonna just try to keep him under wraps because the one rep I saw, Lord, it's gonna be trouble. I wouldn't want to be a guard in NFC right now.
Hey, that's good. I'm looking forward to Monday night. I wish Monday night was a game that we all can go to as a group. But if I'm not mistaken, we play in Baltimore, the final preseason game.
No, so Baltimore is Monday night here, or we're at home, and then I think the Cincinnati game that might be here, but I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to double check that.
Okay. We normally play Baltimore last preseason game.
Well, they switched around because of the practice thing.
I don't like that. So, because I like playing Baltimore the last one because that's when you see the young prospects. Number one, it's great travel time, whether it's in Baltimore, whether it's in Landover. It's great travel time for both teams. So they don't have to worry about flying. You just get on the bus and you come down 295, hit 495, and you're at the stadium. It's not a hard commute. And I think that's the way the last preseason game, if you're in close proximity with another team, that should be your last preseason game. Just my opinion.
See, you don't like traditions being changed at all, so you're gonna hate college football the next 5 years.
Yeah. I struggle with change. I think I've always had my whole entire life. It was a struggle, and we're gonna talk about some college football anyway. But it was a struggle when Lou Holtz retired. It was a struggle to watch Notre Dame football under Bob Davie because I grew up watching Lou Holtz.
Right.
So it was a struggle for me, not seeing him on the sidelines. So, I don't do change very well.
So then when you saw him in South Carolina, did it hurt your heart? Did you cry? Had to take leave from work? What?
Nah, not bad as leave from work. Put it this way. It was the equivalent of seeing an old friend that you were really, really close with at one point in time. But only time you get to see him is in another city and another friend group, and they just kind of wave and you just wave. And, it's bittersweet because, they're good. So that's the sweet part. But the bitter part is they're not in the friend group anymore. I guess that's the best way to describe it.
As only KG can describe it, man.
Yeah. Now, we're going to go to some NFL, and we're going to talk some Commanders. And, if we're going to do it, we got to do it right. That's a small one. I need the big one.
Pause.
Those haters can't stand us.
Had the whole crowd screaming, we want talent. Those haters can't stand us. Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders. We fight for RDC. Who are we? The Commanders.
Yes, indeed. We are the Commanders.
Yes.
My wife doesn't like that very much, but it's okay. I love her. Left hand up, baby. Left hand up.
She's driving.
Yeah. She's putting her right hand up. She's giving me the one finger salute. So.
Yes, sir. You are number one.
Well, that's okay. Like I always tell everybody, how did you marry a Dallas Cowboy fan? Cause she redskin on, but she Dallas operator, but redskin on. That's okay. What you hitting me for? It's the truth. Who runs things?
Oh boy.
Now.
Okay.
Now here's the question of the night for Commanders. What position group scares you if hit by injuries? Basically, what position group can't afford to lose anybody? On the one position group on the offense and one position group on the defense. I'll let you take it first.
Well, I'm gonna start on the most important side of the football, and that's the defensive side. And I really think that they're good in the secondary as far as safeties. I think they're good up front with the defensive line, whether it's tackle or end. So the place where I'd be scared right now is I don't think you can lose one or two corners. I don't know how much faith you want to have in Castro. I think it's Tariq Castro or whatever his last name is, or Rico. Was it Wood Chip or Woodgate? Those guys. I just don't know if you have enough. I have enough confidence in them to go against these top receivers in the NFL. And after week 3, you're getting like Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. We're getting some top flight wide receivers. Game 2, you're getting Jerry Jeudy and company. And I just don't want to see something happen to our top DBs, and we have to play these guys in major situations and major spots. I know Danny Johnson played well last year a couple times in the slot, but Christian Holmes got beat up a little bit when he had to play. So that's the one spot on the defense that I worry about. They have some depth, but I don't know how solid that depth is at this point in time. So going into this, I think that's the place to worry. I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to take your answer. So if you're ready, stage is all yours, sir.
Okay. Since you went defensive first, I'm gonna go offensive first, and I'll say the O-line, because the O-line is shaky at best right now. We don't even have a full idea of who your starters are going to be, because guys can trend up and trend down all camp, all preseason. Then you got to worry about those nicks and bruises that come with the preseason. So for me, on offense, it's the O-line. We can't afford to lose not nan soul on the O-line, because we need every available body. And I hope they carry anywhere from 8 to 9 offensive linemen this year. So we do our 53. Have to carry how many?
I think they have to carry 10. I don't think they can go under 10. I mean, because you got Gates, Larson, Stromberg. Your guards are Charles, Cosme, and Chris Paul. So that's another 3. Then you got tackles. You got Leno. You got, oh gosh, what's the dude's name from Kansas City? You got Cornelius Lucas. Oh, and Wiley. So that's 3, 3, and 3. So that's 9 right there. And all 9 of those have to be there. And then you probably carry Daniels, the kid you drafted. You're probably going to carry him on the roster, even though he's probably going to be inactive every week. And you're going to probably pull somebody off of your practice squad to be your 10th lineman in that situation. So that's where I see. And actually, let's just go ahead and transition to that. If you're done, I'll just go ahead and take it from here, because that's exactly where I said the issue is. But I'm going to go to a particular spot. I'm going to say we can't lose anybody at the tackle position. I don't know who the backup tackles are, because if you lose one of your top 2, you're going with Lucas and Wiley or Lucas and Leno. And then after that, it's a crapshoot. You fail to develop a tackle outside of anybody else. So that means either you're bringing Cosme over to play tackle in one of those spots, or you're pulling up somebody from your practice squad to play tackle, and that's gonna get real dicey. When you start getting to the Micah Parsons, you get to the Hassan Reddicks, you get to all the good ends, Sam Williams in Dallas, you get to the kid from Oregon up in New York. I mean, you get all these defensive ends in this division alone. Let's not talk about the rest of the league. And you have an injury at tackle spot. You are putting yourself in harm's way. You're gonna have some trouble trying to get this done. So I don't see where this team can lose a tackle first off, but then I'll go a step further and say offensive lineman with you, in agreement with you. I mean, I just don't know what the options are after that.
And Zach KDR, hey my dude, how's it hanging? Hey man, it's hanging. It's a Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday, so let's enjoy it, baby.
Hell yeah!
I'm glad to have you here.
Definitely.
Defensively, I think we're strong at corner. We can stand. It depends on who they keep, and that's another deep position. I think on defense, defensive line and secondary, whether it's safeties or corners, I think we're very, very deep because we got safeties that can actually play the corner position as well. But I think linebacker is where we can't afford to lose anybody because it seems like now we've lost Cole Holcomb, and I'm still salty about that. I'm going to be salty about losing Cole Holcomb because of the talent that I know he brings and what he brings to the table. But linebacker is Jamin Davis, and then that's it. I'm just like, what else are we supposed to do? We can't do anything else on defense at linebacker if we lose a linebacker. Because who's out there unless you bring John Bostic back again? And I'm sure the Midnight Rider does not want to do that.
We're not going to even touch that topic because I was going to say something and I get in trouble. So I'm not even going to touch that. But you're right. I mean, linebacker is a place to worry. Because when you think about, not Holcomb, you got Barton, you have Davis, you have Hudson, and then who's next? Now they've been talking about the drafted kid from Louisville Lafayette. He got some run with the ones this week at the practice. So, but he was playing in. But they say he's had the ability to stand up and play linebacker. Maybe he's your fourth option or fifth option. But it gets shaky. It gets real shaky in that regard. And then to hop back over to the offense, I think another issue we're going to have possibly is that tight end. The tight end spot has been, you lose one person, you lose Logan. Your offense becomes very predictable. It goes to the point where whatever tight end comes in, you basically telling them you're giving out what the play is based on the tight end that comes into the ball game. Because you bring in Bates, then they know you're running. And if you bring in Turner, they know you passing. And you're not going to run a whole lot with Turner as your primary tight end. The kid that's going to make it interesting is Alex Amara, the fullback / tight end that they've been showing. I think he wears number 40. So if he's in the game, he might be able to give you some position flex, be able to help you high formations, have it so you can basically block on the edge and get some things done that way. But as we look at this, this team is probably it's the deepest I've seen this team. But I think there's certain areas where they scream out loud where they don't put value. And they don't value linebacker because they like to go with the Cinco package or the 5. And that's it. Well, Leroy, great question. How in the hell do we not have linebackers and our head coach in DC were linebackers? I think we're at a point in this league where if you look at it, 10 years ago, you would have never taken a 220-pound safety and put him in the box as either your second or your third linebacker. But nowadays, that's all they do. They all take that safety, that the strong safety that's a little bit bigger, and they'll put him at linebacker. You talk about Neil that used to play for the Cowboys. He was a safety. There's a bunch of old safeties that were box safeties, but now their job and their position is linebacker. I think the problem is you have so many teams going with these multiple formations where you're getting a lot of 3-4 wide sets. and they're dictating the tempo. They're dictating the matchup. And at that point, when they're with them dictating the matchup, you have to play two linebackers or a linebacker, depending on your situation. I mean, Philly runs a 5-man line, and I think they only have one linebacker in the game. It's not just us. It's around the league. The only problem is people aren't talking about how the linebacker position is being pushed to extension like they do the running backs. That's all it is.
Here's the thing. And you said something about Logan. I want to talk about that first. Isn't Logan Thomas already hurt? That's why they signed the other tight end?
Right. So he's been nursing a calf. He's been out since August 4th. And it was like, oh, we're going to give him a couple of days rest. And then it turned into, well, we don't want to rush it. Turned into, we don't want to push it. You know, that sounds kind of like Curtis Samuel's growing from a couple of years ago, the way it's starting to sound to me. But I ain't going to say that. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to say allegedly, so that way nobody thinks I'm actually saying that.
Here's my thing.
All right, there we go. Let's get that gas. 8 on 6.
That's actually where I'm at too. But here's my thing. You, shit. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
I ain't want the phone to connect to the radio. But here's my thing. When it comes to Logan Thomas, I think he's a talent. But how much longer do we put up with him? And I'm not saying it like he's a burden. I'm saying how much longer do we put up with him and the injuries before we have to say, all right, look, we got to move on and find another talent at tight end, because they're not going to draft anybody. You had Jeremy Sprinkle, you never used him. He's gone. Hale Hinches and all these other guys that then came through here in the last 5-10 years. Nobody panned out at tight end. You know, you haven't had a productive tight end before Logan since what? Cooley? Maybe now it's Paul. Oh, Jordan Reed. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I always forget about Jordan Reed.
Yeah, I get it, but no, I think they were in a spot where all the tight ends that are starting to come out, they're all move tight ends. So it's not like you can it's not like you're gaining the advantage by drafting one of these tight ends, because you already got a move tight end. You got Cole Turner. So it's almost redundant if the guy can't block. You know, you're getting to a point, like the only guy I think in this draft was Darnell Washington from Georgia, the big kid that wore number 0. He was pretty much one of the only blocking tight ends with some playmaking ability. Everybody else was a move guy. Everybody else was a 225, 235 pound tight end. So I don't know what they're going to do. And this is where the kid Amari Rodgers being hurt before training camp started. It's like if he had just gotten hurt before the draft, I think he changes the way this team drafts and handles themselves in the first 2 rounds. But because of the injuries, and it happening so late, I think they thought that he was going to take a big jump, because he flashed early in the season. If you remember, he flashed a whole lot in the first 8 games. Their problem was just they just didn't use him enough. And then he got hurt later on, and then in the end of the season. But I mean, that kid, I think right there was their key to their remedy to not taking a tight end in the draft. And he would have been able to keep them multiple in terms of what they could call on the field if it's him and Logan or if it's him and Bates. But now without Logan in the picture, it kind of takes away the multiple and the ability to hide what you're doing. So that's why I think this fullback kid is going to get some play, because he did some things. If you paid attention to that second half of the Browns game, him and Rodriguez, they put in some work. They collected some bodies. So that might be the way it goes, is you become I don't know what that personnel group would be, because I can't think of it off the top of my head, but you have your tight end, 2 backs, and then maybe you go with your 2 receivers in that situation, or you go 3 receivers and you have him in the backfield.
You know what? If you go 2 receivers and a tight end and a running back, that's your basic I formation. That's your old school I formation. If you want to be technical about it, and you want to put that tight end in the backfield with 2 tight ends on the line, do that Merlin eye. I mean, never mind, because I'm about to go ahead and get into it because we can start talking about the full house, and I'll destroy anybody using the full house. I love it, but
you're gonna see a lot of you can see some 3 tight end sets for sure this year with this team. The
and
question
they're not
is,
going to run out of it. They're going to pass.
Right. There's a couple of sets that they already have from that I was watching with Kansas City on online that they've got a nice setup with the 3 tight ends. And you actually get some big plays out of the 3 tight end set. So it's gonna be interesting. And I'm gonna say this. We get to the cut downs and we still have some questions at tight end. I'm going to say that whatever the tight end situation is in Kansas City, keep an eye on it. Because if one of those guys shake free, I wouldn't doubt in a heartbeat that they would make a move. And that kid they picked up from the Giants, I could see him being cut or being let go and us adding one of those Kansas City tight ends because they've been in the system. One of the guys that maybe he's the low man on the thing and he just gets beat out by a kid that had a good preseason. But we know what he can do because you had him last year. I think that's the guy that you get, and you get it basically off the strength of just Eric being there last year. There's somebody in that tight end room that he likes. So,
Ross say, don't they have a fullback on the roster? Wouldn't that be a jumbo package?
The tight end.
Would you?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to ask, would you consider that a jumbo package? If you going, 2 backs, fullback, one of the running backs, tight end, and 2 receivers, would you really consider that a jumbo package? I mean, that's just, don't get me wrong. Whether it's a traditional eye or offset, whether it's weak or strong, I would love to see it. And I would love to, but we don't have any power backs to run that type of offense.
Yeah, you do.
Who's your power? Well, no. Let me, because Brian Robinson is a stud in the middle, and he can run up the middle and knock people over. So there's your power back right there.
You got Robinson, who's a thumper. You got Rodriguez, who's a banger, and then you got Jonathan Williams. That if he's on the roster or he's active that weekend, he will try to collect some souls. So you can run that with anybody. And actually, for him, I'm actually surprised they haven't talked to him about putting on another 10 pounds and trying to play fullback, kind of like Michael Robinson did in Seattle, because he's got the athleticism and he's not going to lose that much speed becoming a fullback, but he can get on the field more because he's going to hit. So I'm surprised they haven't done that. The fullback that's on the roster is the kid Amra. I just can't remember what his first name is or pronounce it. So that's the only reason I haven't said it. But I think it's like Alec Amra, something like that. But yeah, he's out there and he makes an impact. So you're going to see him. The question becomes, does it become a situation where it's him and Bates as some 2 tight ends or a tight end and a fullback? He motions up to the line. Like, we're going to be multiple anyway. So the kicker on this is just not being tied down to what it normally looks like, because we're not going to do what it normally looks like. We got something different now. So you're going to see different options coming in the field. You're going to see different plays coming at you. You're going to see the same play out of a different formation, or they're going to, like the old school way where you start the formation one way, you go in, you motion into it, and it becomes the same play you ran like 4 plays ago. So
you know who's famous for that?
I wasn't going to say it, but it's Joe Jackson Gibbs.
No, it was long before him.
All right, go ahead. Who was it? Curly Lambeau?
No, it was Hank Stram. Hank Stram and the dizzying pre-snap that Kansas City used to do in the 60s. They would come out and they would set up in one, and then they would shift everything. And then all of a sudden that shift coming in a whole totally different formation. You're not even ready for it. And then, we talking 65 toss power trap. Just keep matriculating the ball down the field, boys.
We're matriculating, boys. We're matriculating. Keep the ball going down the field, baby.
And Ross said that's a basic old school eye. That is Robinson and Rodriguez.
That's the power backs we're talking about.
Keith says D line. That's the heart of the defense. Those guys get hurt. Opposing offense will have even more of a field day.
I like that thought, Keith. But the only thing I think about is like, all right, so say John gets hurt. I think you still have Mathis and Ridgeway. You know, I think they're solid enough. And then if you get down to two of them getting hurt, I think you can push Obata in that. You know, I think they're going to do some stuff where they're going to have a NASCAR package. So you might see situations where you see Obata chase at tackles, and you have Montez on the outside, and then you have the rookie on the other outside, and now they just going all speed at you. Speed with some power, because you know Chase is strong, so they ain't like you gonna lose a whole lot of power on that in the middle. And Obata's played this, so I think this team's gonna give you a lot of different looks. So don't get caught into everything that you see. And sometimes there will be some guys dropping out because you're gonna overload the side. So don't call in the sports talk radio on Monday like, oh, Chase can't be dropping out. Chase probably dropped out twice, but you think it's happening all the time. Like some of that has to happen for the blitz that you call for to happen. So like, let's be smart sports fans as we watch this. I know the guys that watch us, I ain't got nothing to worry about, but we all listen to the radio. So we all know what happens there.
That is true. Ross says fullback and Gibson in the backfield, 2 tight ends and a wide receiver. On the shift, Gibby shifts the wide receiver. And if he shifts out the wide receiver and he's covered by a linebacker, that's 6 all day. And if it's a shift and he's covered by a linebacker and single high safety, touchdown all day. Touchdown all day.
Oh man, when you say that, I was watching what's the dude that used to be here that ended up at the Raiders? Will Compton. So it's Will Compton and Tyler Lewan. They do their podcast, and they happen to have Josh Allen on the podcast. And Compton was talking about playing linebacker and covering the wide receiver. I mean, covering the back. He said, well, you know, we call that. He was like, what? We call that milk. He was like, what? We call it milk. So the call is milk, and basically what it means is we got this all day. It's all good over here. This running back is winning this matchup because the linebacker can't stay with him. So that's what you made me think of. But yeah, I think if Gibson comes out and he's on anybody, any linebacker, it's automatic. I think you throw him the hand signal, whatever it is, you tap the helmet, you call Omaha, you know what I'm saying? You call Tango, whatever your call is, you get to that and you let that happen because that's going to be an all-day affair. And somebody's going to be hurting on that. For real.
I agree 1,000%. And that's the thing when you leave your keys in the car. So, but it's okay. I'm here. Let's hit this next topic because we already at the 28-minute mark and we good. We're doing good. Let's keep it rolling. Switched over to college football and I spelled that wrong, so please forgive me. I'll fix that. Hold on, let me fix this.
So while you fix it, I'll go into it. So basically, the thought process is, what to college football? What ifs? That if you turned it around, A, tell me the result of the game that you're talking about, and then B, how do you think it would affect that season or the next season of college football? So I'm gonna give you a simple example first. So let's go to Miami versus Ohio State, and the infamous pass interference that was called. That probably shouldn't have been called, but it got called. If that doesn't get called, that Miami team, even though it's already considered one of the greatest teams in college football the year before, but think about it, they would have 2 teams in probably the top 10 of greatest teams in college football ever. And we're talking about teams that had lineups where you had Sean Taylor, Ed Reed as your safeties. We're talking about a team that I think they had like 21 first-round picks off of those 2 teams. Your running backs was Gore. You had McGinnis. McGahee. You had Portis. I mean, we're talking about a team that was deep in college football players that became NFL players. And if you don't have that holding penalty, I mean, let's seriously think about how that changes the narrative around that Miami program. And maybe even you get some momentum and it carries over another year or two after that, and that team stays at the upper echelon and doesn't drop off. You know, that team was special. Those two teams were special. And maybe the big drop off was the fact that you lost Ken Dorsey, but still having a team that talented and that successful. I mean, it's even to a point that they had a stat that if you took away every offensive touchdown from the 2001 Hurricane team, they was in the season 8-4. I'm gonna say it again. If you take away every offensive touchdown that team scored, they were still in the season 8-4. That's dominance. And that's a team that we would be talking about for a long time. Go ahead, big guy.
That's tough. That's tough. But see, now my what if is it's not a game. It's not a game. Not a game. It's a moment. It's a moment in time that if it was changed the way it should have been, it would have changed the landscape of the early 90s of college football. And that is Rocket Ismail winning the 1990 Heisman Trophy over Ty Detmer. Now, he came back for the 91 season, if I'm not mistaken, because he didn't go to the 92. He came back in 91. In 91, we were up for a national championship, undefeated, and they ranked us third, so we didn't get the national championship. In 91, we didn't get it in 93. But if he would have won the Heisman, we would have had a lot more eyes on us than we did have. We would have won the national championship those 2 years.
Well, 93 is just one of the most egregious things that you can have because it was all about getting Bobby Bowden his title. I mean, if in any stat breakdown that you do, any tiebreaker you do, one of the first tiebreakers is head-to-head competition. And they beat Florida State that year. Their only problem was they let Boston College come in there and beat them on a field goal late. And that's probably one of the hardest games I've probably ever watched as an Irish fan is that game right there because you knew that something was going to happen because Boston College just kept sticking around, and it seemed like every time the football hit the ground, it would turn left and fall in the hands of somebody in the gold pants, but not in the burgundy stripe, not the good guys' hands. So yeah, I can see that.
But you know, you want to talk about something that sticks in my craw? That sticks in my damn craw. Because now I'm a Notre Dame fan because of Tim Brown, Rocket Ismail, Tony Rice, the running backs of the early 90s, the Rodney Culvers, the Jerome Bettis, Ricky Waters when he moved to running back, all the way up to Lee Becton and Ray Zellers. Those are my guys. But it was like we always seem to get cheated out of another national championship. I really believe Lou Holtz should have more than one national championship under his belt because we were a powerhouse through the late 80s, through the mid 90s. We were a powerhouse. And I feel that him winning the Heisman Trophy would have changed the landscape because if you think about it, we haven't had a Heisman Trophy winner from Notre Dame since what? Before what? Manti Te'o before him?
Manti didn't. He was in the running, but he didn't win it.
Should have won it with that sob story he came up with. But we haven't had a Heisman Trophy winner since what? Tim Brown.
Right. Nah.
I think Tim Brown was our last Heisman winner.
Rock is after Tim. I said, Rock is after Tim.
Yeah, but he didn't win it. Okay. He lost out to Ty Detmer.
I'm sorry. I got lost.
Point. I'm sorry. Right. It's okay. He lost to Ty Detman. We haven't had a Heisman Trophy. We had people in the running,
Right.
but we haven't had, that. I think that would have set us up on our legs for the 90s. We would have had, you had Rick Meyer, but after Rick Meyer, you had Kevin McDougal, then you had Ron Paulus. We haven't, it's a lot of things that would have changed. I think the program would have been totally different had he won that, because a lot of players would have said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and commit to Notre Dame because of the national exposure.
I think the issue was the quarterback play post Meyer. Like you started naming names, and it wasn't a who's who. It was just like, God. And I never forget that Ron Paulus, by the way, I think it's his son. He's on the team this year, but I think he's the third string QB. But Ron Paulus came in with all the hype. He was supposed to walk on water. He was supposed to heal the sick. If you was bleeding, he was supposed to stop the bleeding. That's what they told me about Ron Paulus. But unfortunately, he came in and he was human. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't Jesus. He was more like maybe John the Baptist. I don't know what was confused.
With Ron Paulus, I remember they talked about, they was like, Ron Paulus is wearing number 3. All the greats wear number 3 at quarterback. Montana wore 3. Meyer wore 3. Yeah, but Montana and Meyer are not in the same category. Not even as college quarterbacks, maybe, but not even as a whole. They're not in the same category. They put too much on Ron Paulus. And I liked Kevin McDougal. Number 15, black quarterback. I love the way he ran the option. He reminded me of a smaller, just a tad bit slower Tommy Frazier.
Wow.
But he was good for what he could do for that season.
Ooh, that's another interesting one right there.
Oh, Tommy Frazier and the blood clots in the knee?
No, the whole what happens to Nebraska if this wouldn't be in the championship game. But if I say it's in college football, so I can use this. If Brooks Bellinger doesn't come in and go 4-0 or 5-0 for Nebraska, do they make the national championship? No. That whole dynamic changes if Brooks Bellinger isn't a guy. And whether he was just a guy for those 5 games or whatever it was, like, he saved that team that year. He did his best. What's your boy in Miami, Baltimore, that gets no love, and they give the love to Greasy and company? You know what I'm talking about. God, I can't think of his name right now. I'm going to say it later on. Like I got Terrell.
I lost you for a second.
No, I said, who's the QB, the pro QB that is a backup? Earl. What is Earl's last name? All right, I ain't gonna worry about it. But when you come back, I know you know exactly who I'm talking about because he led the Dolphins during the season. But Brooks Bellinger, Earl Morrow, thank you. I knew who it was. But Earl Morrow is the guy that Brooks Bellinger was, where he didn't get all the credit for that season that Nebraska won the national championship, but he steered them to 4 or 5 victories during that season and pulled out some games that they probably wouldn't have pulled out. He might have been better than Tommy to some extent during that stretch.
Here's a question, and I'm not even going to use this as one of mine, but I thought about this when you asked this question off air. What if Brooks Bollinger didn't die? What if he didn't die? I think he would have been what you thought Tommy Frazier would have been in the NFL. I'm just saying.
It's interesting. So the next one for me that I had planned, because I stumbled into the Tommy Frazier one. So let's go with the planned one. What if USC versus Texas turns out different? And Vince Young doesn't make that dynamic run down the sideline. USC wins that national championship. Does Pete Carroll leave USC?
No.
So now we're talking about USC maintaining this for a longer period of time. Now, since you're a Marvel guy, you understand in the metaverse, we done changed the dynamics of the metaverse. Now, what happens to Seattle? What happens to Russell Wilson? I'm sorry. Like that whole Pete staying is a dynamic cog in that whole piece, and it would just change the world around. Because now the quarterback that was in Seattle, he's the starter. He doesn't lose his job. Russell Wilson is somewhere else. I mean, it's crazy how that stuff plays out, man.
That's Matt Flynn.
We may never know who Richard Sherman is.
True, but now the quarterback before Russell Wilson was actually supposed to be Matt Flynn because he signed that big deal with Seattle.
Right.
And Russell Wilson came in and blew him away in camp and blew him away in the preseason. He's like, yeah, all right, we got to get rid of this dude. We'll eat the money, but he got to go. And then he wound up getting another deal from, the Raiders?
Maybe. But at that point, he was done.
But see, now you bringing in more.
See, that's why I knew this topic was going. That's why when you said a third, I was like, I don't know, we need a third because you're gonna start thinking about stuff. Because now you're breaking down walls. You know what I'm saying? Like at this point right now, we got it's like Spider-Man, where the first Spider-Man is in the room, the second one, and then the kid now. Like they all in the room looking at each other. Like we got 3 different virtual worlds sitting at our virtual selves looking at us right now. Because now you're starting to think of other scenarios.
Now,
go ahead.
I would have been sick if USC won that championship.
Right, because of the infamous push.
Say it again.
The infamous push?
That was our year.
The infamous push. And then, all right, let's stay, because this is one of my favorite what ifs. We're going to stay last season. Texas versus Alabama. If they call the safety that was a safety and will always be a safety, and I don't know how it wasn't a safety on Alabama, that flips the field. Secondly, if Alabama doesn't cheap shot Quinn Ewers, that ball game, Alabama doesn't win that ball game. Alabama doesn't win that game at all. And Texas on its stride, and Texas may even, because the kid's not hurt and they're not playing Hudson Card, Texas may be in the national championship picture. And now you have a 2-loss Alabama who may not be in their championship game for their conference. Like there's so many things that could have changed that whole season. Because Alabama takes that loss. Well, what other loss they take? They take the Tennessee loss, of course. They lose somewhere else, maybe. Maybe we're talking about Tennessee and Georgia. Actually, we can't because they're on the same side of the conference. But that's gonna be in the future when these divisions go away, because that's what they're going to do. You're gonna start getting that as the title game. Like college football and the dynamic is changing.
Here's the thing. You talk about Alabama. And I like to do a lot of my what ifs with my own teams. If Notre Dame comes out, what was that, 2012, and they destroy Alabama the way they got destroyed by Alabama, it was like they had no heart that game. But if they would have took Alabama's heart, and how do you beat a gorilla? You punch him in the mouth. And if they would have punched Alabama in the mouth and said, all right, we taking this national championship, and they won the national championship that year, would Alabama be still considered the powerhouse that they once were?
I think they've been talented enough that that team, if that team doesn't win it, the team the next year wins it because they're hungrier. Like I think a team like Alabama, I think a team like Miami, even I think like a Georgia team, because one of these Georgia teams is not going to win it. I think if you take away the title before, then the next year they get the title, if that makes sense, because they're going to come back hungrier. So I think they still get some of the stuff, some of the the titles. They just get them in different years because they stay loaded. Like I posted that one video, and it was like every time they named the linebacker or defensive player, like you could tell when they got drafted, first round, second round. You know, it was guys on there that was dogs on some of those Alabama teams. You know, you talking about first round.
Yeah. Most of them play here in DC.
Exactly.
So now, if I have to pick my second, man, if I got to pick my second, what if Willis McGahee does not get injured in that game, in that national championship game?
They win. It's not close.
It's not even a ball game because he was shredding them. But the simple fact that Frank Gore came in and started shredding them too, I was like, oh, this is a talented team. And I had a cousin, and my cousin used to always say, man, you gotta look. I think he was playing NCAA 2003. I think that's what it was. It was in 2003 or 2004. It had to be 2004. Whichever one got Carson Palmer on the cover. We were playing that, and he was like, I'm gonna use this Miami team. I guarantee you're not gonna beat them. I said, all right, I got you. We picked the neutral site and we went at it. And I found out how talented off a video game that the team really was. Like it went down as an instant classic. I think it was probably one of my only either one of 3 losses that I had in college football.
So let's see. Ross also says in the comments, I wanted to ask what you guys thought of Jarius Jackson. I like Jarius. For me, I struggled. He was up and down. Like I think Jarius for me ended up in that same category with Kaiser. I think Jarius had potential. I think his only problem was he just didn't have the top-notch receivers at that time in the program. So it was a thing where as a team, they were okay, they were good, but they struggled a whole lot in the passing game. And I think if he just had a little bit of help, if he had a better receiving core, it doesn't mean like as a whole. I'm talking about one or two guys that he could have just gone to in an important moment. I think Jarius Jackson would have been better in the long run for it. So I definitely liked him, but I think I had some hiccups. I wasn't a big fan of him, but there's a couple Irish QBs that probably the big guys bigger on than I am. But that's also partially because I'm a bigger pro style guy than an option guy. Even though I like the option, but he didn't have a lot. Like even guys like, and I don't remember if this is his class or not, but like I used to remember watching guys like Autry Denson, and like Autry was good, but he missed another gear.
Yeah, Autry was my main.
Like I loved him like as a back, but I just was like, oh, if he just had that one more, like you know how I go when you shift, and if he had that extra shift, yeah, I think Autry would have had a long NFL career, but I think his lack of that extra gear is really what kept him there.
Ross says he didn't have a lot of talent around him. He was college good, but not pro good. Yeah, that's because he went to Miami. Autry Denson wound up getting picked up by Miami, and Miami doesn't cultivate running back. They didn't cultivate running backs at that time. I want to say that's around the time Jimmy Johnson came. And so they had him, Robert Edwards, Cecil Collins. They had all these guys.
Right, but only reason Robert Edwards was there is because he tore his knee up in the beach volleyball, and he was on the back end of his thing. They almost had to amputate his leg. Another running back from RBU, Georgia.
Let me think. When you talk about quarterbacks, Jarius Jackson he was pretty good. He was good for what he was. I was a big Arnaz Battle fan. When he broke his wrist and switched to receiver, I was pissed that they didn't put him back at running quarterback. I was pissed. I was a big Arnaz Battle fan. But you know, it's like we have so many quarterbacks that have come through South Bend. Like, you don't really care for Everett Golson like that. I love Everett Golson.
I say this every year. When people come to me and say Notre Dame is overrated, I'm like, Notre Dame's not overrated. But when you categorize these teams, you got to put people in the right categories that they're in. There's Georgia, Alabama. Since Clemson doesn't have a QB, Clemson's down a level. But that's the top tier. That's the top. The next box is Ohio State and all those and a couple other schools. And I put Notre Dame in probably as a top 8, top 9 program. If they have a quarterback, which they haven't really had, and Sam Hartman is going to have to prove a lot to me. But when they have a quarterback, if they ever get a quarterback, they can jump up into the top 4 and be a national championship team. But I always feel like, based on our quarterback position, we're probably 5, 6, 7, 8 in college football. There's a big difference when you don't have the guy. And you're kind of seeing that right now with Clemson. Clemson doesn't have the guy. And I thought DJ Oogie Woogie Woogie Baylor to whatever his name is that transferred out to Oregon State, I thought he was the guy, but he couldn't do it. So now they got Chad Klubnik as their quarterback. And I don't know if he's the guy. But when you have 8 years of Taj Boyd and Trevor Lawrence, like that next group, that's where the struggle comes. And I think that's Notre Dame's biggest problem is they haven't had an elite guy at QB.
Here's the thing. You may not be high. And Ross, you tell me if you were high on Everett Golson, because he took us to 2 national championships in 3 years. When he left for that season and we didn't do anything. We didn't bust a damn great. He came back. We were right back on top. You know, I just always felt that it wasn't enough oomph in the offense. Huh?
Because he wasn't enough. He didn't have enough. And offensively, their talent, Notre Dame has their primary problem is quarterback. Their next problem is wide receiver and cornerback. That's their next issue.
Well, if you think about it, think about the great quarterbacks that have come from Notre Dame. Some of them great college quarterbacks, not great pro quarterbacks. And then you have arguably one of the best quarterbacks ever to grace the field in Joe Montana. You have Joe Theismann, Terry Hanratty, Tony Rice, Rick Meyer. Carlisle Holiday was a good college quarterback, but not a great pro. You know, you got guys like that. But
Carlisle Holiday was the recipient of some of the greatest luck on that team. That's Todd Williams' team. That team, I swear, like if you look, and this is why when we do our pro preview, you won't hear me talk about the Giants. I think the Giants are in this situation, and I think Minnesota might be in this situation. You got every break last year. And that team with Carlisle Holiday that went 10-1, that team wasn't that talented. It's just they caught every break during that season, and that's how they ended up there. Like they had a crazy turnover. If I had this stat in front of me, their turnover margin was ridiculous. Like they were like 2-1 or 3-1 in the turnover ratio to the giveaways and takeaways. It was absurd. You knew it wasn't repeatable. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but Carlisle Holiday is one of those guys. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Carlisle Holiday is one of those guys that what?
No, I'm not a big Carlisle Holiday guy. I mean, it's going to sound bad. Like, I think Brady Quinn, Kaiser, while he was there, the only problem was his coach was an idiot the season he played. But now he's down in LSU with his family. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just happy he in LSU with his family. I'm probably one of the few people that wasn't a big Brian Kelly
Instead
guy.
of me, I was, because I was like, okay, he's gonna. Now the thing is, I wasn't a big Bob Davy guy. When we got Ty Willingham, I was in love. When they let him go, I was hurt. When we got what's the coordinator from the Patriots?
Charlie Weiss.
I can't think of his name. I can see his face. Charlie Weiss.
Weiss.
When we got Charlie Weiss, everything was good. Everything was love. Now we were supposed to get George O'Leary, but he lied on his resume. I mean, everybody lies on their resume, but cool. But we get Brian Kelly, and I'm like, okay.
I think that was a blessing.
You say you think what?
I think the George O'Leary.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
I thought
reasons that I thought Brian Kelly was the big negative and not the talent. Like, I think he allowed his emotions to take away his concentration, and he hurt them in a couple games. And that's when Kaiser said he wanted to leave, I was like, yeah, I think you should, because you're never going to get better with this guy as your coach. And it was from a standpoint of, I saw the talent that was still there, and he wasn't going to get better with that receiving core. I'm even thinking about this year's receiving core. I hope one of these freshmen, true freshmen, come in and show something, because I don't remember. I got to go do some research, because I haven't started a whole lot of my college analysis outside of just checking out the quarterbacks. And this is, like I said, I don't know if I was telling you when I said this, but there's probably going to be 8 to 10 quarterbacks that's going to be hovering around the first 3 rounds of this draft next year. I don't know if they're going to be heavy in the ones, but they're going to be a bunch of them around. So you're not going to have to trade the farm to get a quarterback.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
And I got a couple of questions, and they're Notre Dame related. Okay. Number one, didn't we have one of Jerry Rice's kids at receiver one year?
No, you had David Robinson's kid.
Okay, David Robinson. Okay, because I remember we I know we had one of Montana kids too, didn't we?
Yeah, you had Nick.
Yeah,
Nick was the 2. And he played a little bit, and then
yeah.
The only thing Montana bought him was the last name.
Now, my final question about Notre Dame, because I got several questions. Instead of me telling you who I like, tell me who's your favorite Notre Dame quarterback. Who's your favorite receiver outside of Tim Brown?
Actually, I like Golden Tate at wide receiver. 83. I can see his number. He ended up playing pitcher for the Cubs. The white dude with the because he was with Brady Quinn. What's his name? I'm gonna get off of this. No, Samardzija, yeah. So I love Samardzija.
It's Jeff Samardzija, yes. My phone kept going out.
No, you good. So those probably like 2 of my favorite ones recently. Backs. The kid that's in with the Rams right now. I loved him. I think Chris Tyree, he's going to end up playing slot receiver, so I'm curious to watch that, because he came in with all the hype of being a game breaker, but he really hasn't done anything he's had a couple of returns, but I'm curious to see what he's going to do in the slot. That actually might be the way he makes it to the pros. Let's see. Quarterbacks. Brady Quinn, Kaiser. I like Golston, but Golston wasn't my guy. Trying to think. Oh, Tommy Rice, of course. And I think that's about it.
Now, I was a big Rick Meyer fan, but now we talking receivers. Rocket Ismail was a Swiss Army knife, so I don't know if you want to count him as a receiver, a running back, whatever, but he's always my tops. I love Golden Tate. Huh?
So I thought you took Rocket off the table too. So
But
that's
I can
why.
take him off the table.
Okay.
I can take him and Tim Brown off the table.
Right.
So
Exactly.
Maurice Stovall was one of my favorites.
He actually had a nice little cup of coffee in the league.
Yeah. And I always noticed that I remember names and I watch guys and I follow their careers, and when they don't make it past that rookie contract, it always breaks my heart because I'm like, yo, I had such high hopes. But I know the Professor Lucky, he always gets on me. He say, man, you got too much loyalty in these guys. You want to keep guys around being loyal. If they can't play, they can't play. And Samardzija was one of my guys because it was Samardzija, Stovall, and somebody else. I can't remember who else was on that team on that offense. I can't remember the running back. Running back won number 4 that year. It wasn't Julius Jones.
Is that Ryan?
Ryan Grant. That was his name, Ryan Grant.
Yeah. He had a decent career. I think he was in Green Bay for a couple years. So I don't know if you saw this in the chat, but BJ asks, how many white quarterbacks are there in the league?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think I have the answer. As of that I can think of, there's one. And there's a kid that got drafted this year out of Iowa. I forgot who he was drafted by, but he's your Jason Sehorn, and I know he's going to play because I think he got drafted in like the 3rd round. He won't be like a Troy Apke. He's going to actually be a legitimate corner.
Yeah, because I was going to say Apke's your other white corner, but he's not. Apke's more of a safety, but they moved him to corner to keep him on the team.
And they can always put him on the practice squad and just pull him up off the practice squad, especially with these new rules, and he'll be able to help them on teams. And that's about it.
Yeah, because now the one thing about Apke, he's got speed, he got wheels, and he can blaze, but he can't get it right. And I'm a big fan of the cat. I'm a big fan of him, but he just can't get it right. Ross says, yeah, I was a fan. He didn't have a deep team around him. I mean, most of we talk about Everett Golson and those guys and the quarterbacks that we've seen at Notre Dame. Everett Golson was one of my favorites because of what he did. So the boss BJ said, what is this? The golden 5 minutes? I didn't approve this. Well, kind of just went off the rails a little bit, but we talk about Notre Dame football. Jeff Samardzija, yeah, Ross got it.
Spelling.
Yeah, we just need to know the name. And the crazy thing about Jeff Samardzija, he was that slot guy at Notre Dame. He was your Cole Beasley, your what's the boy name from the Patriots? I can't think of his name. Wes Welker, that's what he was. He was all of it.
I get that. You know who? This name probably will ring a bell. Like they've had some hard luck at wide receiver too. Like the kid that wore number 0 last year, Chris Lindsey. Like he's like a 5th-year senior, and I think every time he started to make plays, he always got hurt. The David Robinson kid. He kept getting concussions, so he didn't play his senior year because of concussions. But he was like one of our better blockers. I could easily have seen him go into the league and add some weight and play tight end. Notre Dame's got a lot of tight ends in this league. You know what I'm saying? Cole Kmet got a second contract. You talking about what's the guy up in you got his name just dropped out my head. It's killing me right now. The dude with the Vikings that wore 82, Kyle Rudolph. You got him playing. There's a couple backups that are playing. Like there's some Notre Dame tight ends all around the league. What's my man Tyler Eifert? When he was in Cincinnati, he was killing
Yes, indeed. Yes. I wanted Washington to sign him. I was like, Washington needs to get him. They need him.
His only problem was he had a hip injury one year and he had a knee injury, and that just kind of took his wheels away from him. But if you do a deep dive, man, there's at least 10 Notre Dame tight ends in this league, and they're not necessarily the primary guy, but they're the second guy. You know what I'm saying? Like I think the biggest one right now is Komet, but there's more out there, like Irv Smith Jr. So there's guys in the league that play tight end for this team. All right, I'm sorry. I don't know if you see the chat. I think somebody's
see what happens when I'm not on and wrap that shit up, B. All right. Well, we look. That's the red light from the boss, BJ.
I think he's playing the wrap it up music.
Yeah, he's trying to play us off stage immediately. So, we're gonna come back on. Well, WrestleManiacs will be in here.
Oh, it wasn't a Notre Dame hour. It's probably like the last 25 minutes. We kind of dove in.
Because we were talking college football, and of course we talk about the things that hurt our heart. So it's okay. It's okay. Derek Mays. Oh my God, Ross. Derek Mays. He played with the Packers. I was so matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think he got a ring in '96 with the Packers. Oh my God, Derek Mays. Damn it, Ross, you just took me back. Oh, I feel like a kid again. I feel like I'm 14 and I'm sitting in the living room like, yep. Yep, Derek Mays gonna blow the league out of the water. Oh my God, man. Fucking Derek Mays. Damn it.
All right, let's take care of some scheduling things, man.
Oh man. Saturday, WrestleManiacs. I think we got a pick show because by me being your reigning and defending champion, and a few different things in this office. Of course, I'll be there with the People's Choice Don Rodriguez, the Nubian Sumo. Sunday, we'll be back with the Sunday Rise. Tuesday, we will be back because we're gonna touch on our. I don't know. It seemed like we did pretty good with the hip hop on Tuesday. We're not gonna go as long. We're not gonna give it 40 minutes. We're gonna touch on it. We're gonna go, but that's on Tuesday. So. Please, if you're listening on replay, if you're listening live, be ready to buckle up to take the mothership out on Saturday. You don't want to miss that. But until then, that's the Midnight Rider. I'm the big guy KG. Thank you to everyone that commented. Ross, the boss BJ, Zach KDR. Thank you everybody that's listening, watching our podcast and everything. We are the sideline. Wait.
I'm gonna say this is my new closing. Fare thee well, Felicia.
I get it. I have no problem with that. Oh man. Hey y'all, we don't do no overtime, man. It's fun. It's been great. We are out of here.
Bow.